Dude. So we are live now, though, and you know, a lot of people were shocked this morning, even last night, as we've seen from the little headquarters of the Clinton campaign, where they were hoping to celebrate. Um, I said I pretty much predicted this. It is one of those things that all the patterns showed that he had the people. It would have had to be a complete rigged election for her to become president. And we already know the flyover nation. Um, you know, everything stuck in the middle tends to be more conservative. Um, and the support for Clinton, even, the ones that she was able to bring on to her side at, the last moments were so hesitant to do it. And it still wasn't going to be enough. And you also had that combined with the sentiment of that flyover nation that they have been just left out to pasture. They don't have a thriving and a positive outlook for the future, and they were mad. They believe that Obama has completely kind of, I don't even want to say that he just, completely forgot about him, but almost they feel that they had become the targets. And the thing is, you see these race war, little pop ups here and there. And the thing is, we have these newer generations that everything was integrated with them. The late Generation X, the early millennials, which a lot of those early millennials don't even, including myself, I would literally just fall on the line of being considered a millennial, but a lot of us don't relate to that. We relate more to the later Generation X. Um, we grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. Um, we tend to look at it all, and we understand that the path that we've been on is not what we envisioned or were taught in our history classes. This is not the America, and a lot of these people that in this flyover nation that felt abandoned, they really felt like they were being attacked, and they didn't grow up with that racism. They seen it maybe in their grandfathers, where it wasn't even a true racism. It was the politically incorrect terminology. Great grandfathers. I had one friend. I met his great grandfather, and this was back in, I can't remember if it was middle school or high school right this second, but it was early back, and he was just one of those guys that he had no filter, absolutely no filter. But he did not dislike anyone either. And it was just kind of awkward, definitely, for that later Generation X, that early millennials, where they've been integrated. Their friends are of many different races. The schools had been integrated for a long period. That racial tension wasn't there, and then all this gets spurred up, and we see that race war. And when you start pinning that on people that weren't a part of the past racism. These are people that are becoming, young adults and older adults that they weren't a part of that. Them and friends of many races have been able to prosper, and they feel like they're being targeted. And I've talked about this where you're constantly voting which foot you want kicking who in the butt, and it's always attached to one body, and that body being government. And we continue to grow laws that target the other side because the other side was in charge and they targeted us. Now we're in charge, so we're going to target them. And all the meanwhile, that body, that government, grows its power. So those hits start becoming harder. That is what led to 2016. This is what we see out of 2016. Now, will Trump turn this around? It's hard to tell. But one thing you can look at is where people that stood on the idea of freedom and liberty. Where did that pan out? Because we've seen many people that were a part of, the Ron Paul revolution. But we've seen a lot of them kind of shoot off in different directions. And many people wonder if we still have a strong liberty movement. And I think we do. And I think we're seeing it in the simple fact people are willing to look outside of the two-party system. We're going to dive into a Ron Paul Liberty report and give me a second here. Post-election roundup. How did Liberty do? And we'll cover that. And I got an article that kind of goes along with that from Reason.com that we'll dive into after this. So here's the Ron Paul Liberty Report.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, the co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Did you get a lot of good rest last night?
I did not. I was up until 3 a.m, I think.
Oh, you were pins and needles watching what the future will bring.
I took a little snooze, though, but then I woke up right before Trump gave his talk.
Oh, okay. Well, a lot of people stayed up, and, there's a lot of hopes. There's always hopes for the next administration to fix up all our problems, and there'll be a lot of analysis going on, and people will be, I think, basically people would like to see things better, and they don't hope that people will fail, but there's still a lot of problems out there, and there's a lot of people talking about, who won. I've always said during this campaign that it looks, regardless, that the people are going to lose. And I hope I'm wrong on that the people won't lose. But I tell you one place where I think the people won, and that is that the pundits, the professionals, the pollsters, the special interests, even many in the marketplace, how schizophrenic the market's been working. You have the head of the FBI come out and say something and the markets go up. He says something the next day and the markets go down. It's so fickle, and this sort of thing. And all these predictions that they know, but really the pollsters and the media, and I think they were biased, against Trump. I think they were sort of biased.
About 100%.
Yeah. So I think anybody who is opposed to the status quo has to be pleased that those who think they run the world have been challenged by the grassroots. And I think that's very good that is the case. And hopefully that can be translated, because we've talked about that a lot. You've got to convert the grassroots. And if the grassroots can be converted, they have to get pretty angry to speak out in an election like this and sort of overcome all this. But that's sort of what happened with Brexit too. The pundits were all saying this is what you had to do. So I think it's a lesson that we can learn, that our approach to appealing to the people to change their minds and then reflect and make sure that they put pressure on our leaders and the people in government to come to their senses.
I have to say, I watched ABC for most of last night, and talking about the pundits, I thoroughly enjoyed watching Bill Kristol, who somehow was still considered an expert after being wrong in every single thing he does. It looked like he'd sat on a bowl of prickly pear cactus all night. He had this look, it's just pure agony. So regardless of who won, it was nice to see him in the hot seat, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot of discussion on policy, and I think the first hint we'll get on what's happening, what we can expect, will be the appointments. And already, of course, they agitated about appointments even before, who's going to be in the cabinet. But it'll be serious talk now. Who's going to be in the Supreme Court? Who's going to be in the cabinet? And who's going to be the advisors? And that's a mixed bag. And I don't want to get into that too deeply because we really don't know. But we do have some hints. It looks like one hope that we had, and people are still hopeful, that the administration will be less controlled by the neoconservatives. But unfortunately, it looks like the neoconservatives are nuzzling up to Trump, both before and after, which means that I think people have to be alert if they don't like what the neoconservatives have been doing ever since we've had George Bush, because that's bipartisan, and it's part of the deep state. So we have to be cautious and try to figure out exactly how much influence they're going to have. And I guess we have a few hints on what might occur there.
Yeah, I monitor Twitter a lot because it gives a good indication, and I watch the neocons a lot. And all of a sudden, when the Trump victory was coming, so many conciliatory tweets, people like Max Boot, who was viciously anti-Trump the whole time. Now, and I hope he does a good job, So they're all angling, they're all about power, and they're all going to flip on a dime. The question is, how much headway will they make? But, you talk about the possibility of people getting cabinet posts. And we've talked about this before. The problem is institutional. The experts, the foreign policy experts, this is my biggest frustration. People who considered experts, they're only the neocons, the people that he has to draw from that pool are the neocons. And so I think foreign policy, John Bolton has a lot of foreign policy expertise. Yeah, but it's all bad. Newt Gingrich, his instincts are horrible. So this is the biggest fear, I think, that people are going to be disappointed that these same old Bush retreads who lied us into the Iraq war are going to go right back in.
Yeah, we need to remain vigilant on that issue for sure. But domestically, I'm not even really up on exactly who he will rely on for economic advice. He has said some decent things about being cautious about our Federal Reserve System. Let's hope that pans out. But that won't change much very fast because, you're not going to get rid of the Fed immediately. And we have to look and see what the Fed is going to do. And because they're an entity unto themselves. And they're closer to the deep state than they are to the president, although they play these games. Usually the president is very much involved with the deep state. But we don't know exactly how much influence that'll be on economic things. There's some suggestions here we need to be cautious about foreign policy. But on economic things, and unfortunately, the momentum of 100 years of Keynesian economics, inflationism, and Federal Reserve is so powerful that it's hard to reverse this, but it does make a difference. So I'm hoping he gets the advisors and the support and has the legislative wisdom to give some tax breaks, even though I see that as good, but way removed from solving our problems of dealing with the business cycle, the malinvestment, the debt that has to be liquidated. So I'll be anxiously watching, exactly who is going to have his ear on what kind of policies he's going to push first.
This goes back to what you've said all along. The real danger is operating without a guiding philosophy. And it's the same in economic policy and in foreign policy. When you don't have a guiding philosophy to at least give you some hints as to what you should do, you'll just reach out for experts. Maybe it's Bolton, maybe it's someone on the economic side that's maybe Krugman or someone, you don't have a philosophy that guides you, and that's the real problem.
A point to support what you're saying is that Trump has been pretty good on taxes,
Yeah.
lower taxes. But then, and there was an initiative on this, and we want to talk a little bit more about initiative. That one initiative was to raise the minimum tax, minimum wage, and they were winning on this. Of course, Trump is for raising the minimum wage. Of course, I'm for raising minimum wages. I want the maximum wage. The best way to get a maximum wage is to have a free market economy and reward productivity, and that's how capitalism works. You become more productive, and salaries have to go up. They become competitive, but minimum wage is not the way to go. So his guiding path, if he had an influence by Austrian economics, he would say, oh, no, it doesn't make any sense, to have minimum wage laws.
And he must instinctively know that he's a successful businessman. He surely has hired and promoted people and understood that if they do better, they get, more wages. So
he wouldn't be political, though. I want to go over a little bit about the initiatives. And there were several. And one was dealing with the minimum wage. There's some that have dealt with on marijuana, and some on gun control. Mm-hmm. I don't like to say gun rights because you have a right to own a gun, and you have a right to own property. But a gun issue in California, and there was something on death penalty and taxing soda pops and this kind of things. So which one did you think was the best, and which one might he have been the worst outcome on these initiatives, as far as looking at it from a liberty viewpoint?
Yeah, these are the ones that's kind of easy to ignore because everyone is looking at Trump Clinton. It's the Super Bowl, the main event. But these other things I think are important. You're right, and I think we talked about it before the show. I think the marijuana initiatives are a great success for the liberty movement. California, Massachusetts, Nevada approved medical marijuana initiatives, the biggest victory since 2012. Recreational marijuana, Maine, Arizona, Colorado, and Washington. No, that's wrong. But so there's been a huge increase in medical marijuana and recreational marijuana approved in the initiatives.
Yeah, and I think this is good, and these are positive. I always like to make sure people understand that it's a narrow approach. It doesn't touch the principle of liberty, because the principle of liberty is that individuals have the responsibility what they put into their bodies, whether it's drugs or whether it's immunizations, or what kind of food you eat, whether you're eating and taking vitamins. This should all be individual decisions made. And but the marijuana is important because it's a nudge in the right direction. But since I'm totally disinterested in the use of so many drugs, the principle is you have the responsibility and the right to make those decisions, which means that anything you put in your body should be legal. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Well, they said, was there ever a time like in our history, like 150 years, and they weren't all cocaine addicts then.
Yeah.
They still drank a lot of alcohol, and they found out prohibition didn't work. So it's the principle of liberty there. But that I think was a definite positive because, generally speaking, they were moving in the direction of more liberty.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I couldn't read my writing earlier.
You got those states right.
But in California, Massachusetts, Nevada, and probably Maine, recreational marijuana succeeded. Failed in Arizona.
Yeah.
That's on the whole. You talk about the critical mass that's reached that really is a de facto nullification of federal laws, and I think this moves us in the right direction.
Now, I'm always looking for consistency. I never liked, as you know, to vote for a bill that was basically pretty good, but it had a few things, 5, 10, 15% of it pretty bad. Yeah. And I thought incrementalism in a negative way is very, very bad because you concede too much. But in California, they sort of lead the charge for legalizing marijuana, so they get a little plus for that. But they also are leading the charge against buying bullets for their guns. So they're tougher now. I guess that passed rather easily.
Yeah, treating bullets as guns, you have to have a background check. So for purchasing bullets, I wonder if that's related to the marijuana.
Yeah. So then there was the other two on minimum wage. We mentioned that there were 4 states. I think it was Colorado, Washington, and
Maine and Arizona
on minimum wages, and they all passed. It's sort of like makes me feel better because I'm helping the poor people and they deserve it. They do. But it isn't the solution. Eliminating personal choices and eliminating a market factor because you want the market rate of wages. And it's just like you need the market rate of interest. If you interrupt, the price of interest and you interrupt the price of wages, it messes up the economy. And already some of those cities that have recently gone up to $15 an hour, there's pretty good evidence that people were laid off, unemployment rates went up where they do that. And of course, the other side argues the opposite. But the principle is why do you want to regulate economic interaction? We don't regulate social interaction. There's a lot of risk in that. Some people, I guess, would like to even do that. But generally speaking, people think that, if it's doing good, you're allowed to do it. Sort of on foreign policy, humanitarian if we're doing something for humanitarian reasons, then we have this moral obligation to abuse the citizens in this country, tax them, or make them fight wars that are not necessary, because there's a humanitarian instinct to help some people. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It usually amplifies the problems they're trying to solve. And that's the way minimum wages are. When you do this, matter of fact, one of the biggest problems in the Depression was the concerted effort. That's when minimum wages started. But there was a concerted public pressure by both Hoover and Roosevelt, not to lower wages, and they did not want lower prices for their food. They didn't want the correction to come. So they said, well, we've got to get the prices of food up. So the farmers were told they had to plow up food, their crops when people were hungry. The same way with wages, they put a lot of pressure on the businessman to keep wages up, and they were never able to make the corrections.
Yeah. Well, the other couple of things that, just to mention, Oklahoma and Nevada approved the death penalty, which is kind of either way for liberty, really. San Francisco decided to tax you if you want a soda pop for your own good, the nanny state. And Colorado approved a physician-assisted suicide initiative. So.
Yeah. Well, this gives us a hint as to what the people are thinking. Of course, there's a lot of money that goes into these initiatives, both pro and con. The people have a special axe to grind. The drug companies will campaign and spend a lot of money to keep marijuana from going on the market because they want you to buy these expensive drugs, which are probably a lot more dangerous than marijuana. And so there's a lot of special interest there to do that. But still, the people do express themselves, and I think sometimes you can get a pretty good hint about what's happening.
Here's some fallout. I think that's probably important to talk about. We were going to talk a little bit about the media. I think fallout on the media. I think the media was shown last night, the mainstream media, and I watch it. I don't usually watch the mainstream. I watched it last night, and it was shown to be absolutely, in the can for Hillary and with the establishment, and it was, completely broke down. Every single person seemed to have gotten the memo that when Trump started doing well, they started blaming uneducated whites, and it has such a racial tone to it that if it were on the other side, people would be up in arms, and rightly so.
Yeah, and I think that's good entertainment, and I think it helps wake up people on what's really going on. But I was watching the financial markets carefully.
It's probably more important.
The crashing of the stock market and the skyrocketing gold prices, and then a sudden correction in both. Who knows where they are at this very moment? Because by the end of the day, it could be quite different. But I think that's an indication. Markets are very, very important. They give you pretty good hints. Even sometimes they're very short-lived, which means the shorter the time span between the market sending out a strong signal, means the more chaotic things are and the more they're trying to sort things out. But markets have a lot of money at stake and they do a lot of sorting out. But I think this is sort of another prediction of mine, is that's not going to go away today. The chaos, the fluctuations up and down. I don't think they're going to sort it out. I don't think they're going to sort Trump out. I don't think they have to sort out what he said and what he believes in and who his advisors are, how much consistency there'll be, and what he can get done, and who in Congress is going to help him. There's so much yet to be sorted out. And it's more than just, a personality and a management problem. It's the reason I become less hopeful in seeing some miraculous thing happening is not the shortcomings of the politicians, and not only the shortcomings of maybe philosophy, but it's the understanding or their misunderstanding of how serious and how big the problems are. The attack on liberty, the foreign intervention's been around a long time, and the fallacy in the Federal Reserve System, the model of Keynesian economics is spending is good and inflating and borrowing. That's a whole philosophy that we've lived with probably close to 100 years, and it's failing. And this in the last 9 years they failed. People know it. The people, I think the average person, the working man, voted for Trump. They're getting behind.
Yeah.
But I don't think they see, unfortunately, the message isn't out there yet on where the real problem is, because these are predictable events. When governments get involved like this, you have this. But because nothing happens, you don't get real growth back again until you get rid of some of the mistakes. As many as you can. You have to liquidate the mistakes, liquidate the debt, liquidate the malinvestment, but instead it's just piling on more and more, pasting it together, glue it together, hope we can hold the air in, don't let the bubble burst. And then you make that argument and say, oh yeah, you want the people to suffer. No, I don't want them to suffer, because it's exactly what we're doing, they're suffering. And because we did it in the Great Depression, now we're in another great recession, and it just prolonged the agony. They've done it in Japan, and this is the political difficulty that no matter from which angle you come from is the most difficult, because it's sort of like take your medicine.
Yeah.
You have a cancer there, and you're going to have a surgical procedure.
Yeah.
Well, that'll hurt. Yeah, it could hurt, but it'll hurt mostly the people who've been ripping us off.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a believer that the only way we can correct this mess is for people to suffer and sacrifice. I don't believe that for a minute. I think getting our liberties back is not a sacrifice.
I can't let you go without asking you a question. I know you don't like the gamesmanship of politics, but I wanted to ask you about Paul Ryan. He's gotten himself, I think, in a bit of a bind. He was early semi-supporter of Trump, then he almost unsupported him. And then when, he sort of, and there was a lot of talk last night that he will be removed as speaker. What do you think happens to Ryan now?
Well, my immediate reaction is the day after an election of a campaign that was very hostile, the winner is softened a great deal.
Yeah, we
all
heard
of a
that.
sudden
Yeah.
the tone is different, and that's good. And I think Ryan is going to survive. But I'm not betting very much money on it, because Trump was pretty strong about that, and Trump supporters are pretty strong on it. So I could very much be wrong on this, but my impression, just the way things work, that they'll probably let him survive, and he's going to finally say something better about Trump, and we'll work things out. And who knows? Remains to be seen.
I was just going to remind you that you don't have to be a member of the House to be the Speaker of the House. So
you want to be Speaker?
No.
Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. And tomorrow we expect to talk some more about this very issue. But we want to address this from the angle of the libertarian philosophy. What did this election do? Are we in bad shape? Did we get some boost on the libertarian philosophy? What can we expect in libertarianism and freedom and constitutional government? Is it all a setback? Is it all going to be negative? Or can we work and get ourselves out of this mess, both economically and also involving our foreign policy? So there's lots of pros and cons on that, and some people are more optimistic than others. But tomorrow we'll address the fact, what will the future of libertarianism be as a result of this election? Thank you very much for tuning in today, and please come back soon.
And that was the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube, ronpaullibertyreport.com. Check them out. Subscribe on YouTube. And like I said, I had an article here to go along kind of with that from Reason.com. And it has to do where third-party candidates did the best. And, it's titled Where the Third-Party Candidates Were the Strongest. It says here, yesterday's presidential election produced the strongest showing in 20 years for third-party and independent candidates. Not all the ballots have been tallied yet, so some of the numbers below may be slightly off from the final totals. But at this point, all the alternative candidates put together have received more than 5% of the popular vote. The leader of the second tier pack, Gary Johnson of the Libertarian Party, has, at this point in the counting, 4,012,871 votes, or 3.23% of the national total. That's much less than he was polling a couple months ago, but it's far better than any other presidential result in the party's 45-year history. It's also better than any other alternative candidate since Ross Perot campaigns of 92 and 96. On the state level, we didn't get to see some of the more extraordinary possibilities that had been tossed around before Tuesday. No, Evan McMullin did not carry Utah, but the second tier candidates did do stronger in some places than others, giving us a multiple maps of where our binary party system is doing the poorest job of representing the full spectrum of political opinion. Here's how the third, fourth, and fifth place finishers fared across the country. Gary Johnson, not surprisingly, Gary Johnson did the best in New Mexico, the state where he was governor from 95 to 2003. He got 9.4% of the vote there, and in some counties hit double digits. He got 5% or more in 7 other states as well. North Dakota, 6.3%, traditionally third-party friendly. Alaska, 5.9, Oklahoma, 5.7, South Dakota, 5.6, Montana, 5.5, Wyoming, 5.3, and Maine, 5.1. He got at least 1% of the vote everywhere. His weakest showing was in Mississippi, where just 1.2% of the voters backed him. That's still more than double his total there in 2012. And I know he was in, I believe, somewhere in the 4% range in Indiana here. Jill Stein, as I write, Jill Stein of the Green Party has 1,192,344 votes, or about 96% of the national total. That's the Greens' best showing since Ralph Nader's campaign in 2000. Stein's highest percentage on the state level came in Hawaii, where she collected 2.9% of the ballots. She also managed to top 2% in Oregon, 2.4%, and Vermont, 2.3%, and more surprisingly, Kansas at 2 even. She did not outpoll Johnson in any state. Evan McMullin, a conservative running as an independent, was on the ballot in only 11 states, so it's not surprising that he finished behind Johnson and Stein. His total currently stands at 443,298 votes nationally, or 0.36%, but he did very well in one of those states. He was a strong third in his native Utah, collecting 20.9% of the vote and finishing second in several counties. He also managed to get 6.9% in Idaho, the only other state where he beat Johnson. He didn't get as much as 2% anywhere else, though he managed to clear the 1% mark in Minnesota, 1.8%, and Virginia, 1.6%, Arkansas, 1.2%, Kentucky, 1.2%, and South Carolina won even. It is no coincidence that McMullen did best in the two states with the country's highest Mormon populations. The only other candidates who managed to get more than 1% of the vote in any state was Darrell Castle of the Paleo Conservative Constitution Party, who is currently polling at 1.3% in Alaska, 1.1% in South Dakota, and more surprisingly, 1% in Hawaii. In Nevada, where voters have the option of voting for none of the above, that option polled 2.6%. Did these candidates tip any states from Clinton to Trump? I've already heard some ruminations that to that effect from angry Democrats ready to replay their scripts from 2000, but it's a hard case to make. Johnson initially drew both disaffected Democrats and disaffected Republicans, but toward the end of the race, the polls suggested that he was pulling much more from the Trump camp. Of course, I don't blame you if you don't feel like trusting any polls right now. And if these three candidates weren't on any ballots, a significant share of their supporters would have simply stayed home rather than vote for Clinton or Trump. Indeed, a lot of people stayed home anyway. Turnout in general was way down this year, and Trump is currently on track to finish with a lower raw vote total than either Mitt Romney or John McCain. Let me repeat that just to drive that home how unpopular the major party candidates were this year. The man who won this election got fewer votes than the men who lost the last two elections, even though the country's population has grown and even though they both lost pretty badly. All that said, there were several states where the alternative candidates collected enough votes to cover the Clinton Trump spread. 6 of those were won by Trump and 7 were won by Clinton. Here's a rundown. Arizona, Trump beat Clinton by 4 points. Johnson and Stein between them collected 5%, but most of that went to Johnson at 3.8%, so it's unclear whether Trump or Clinton was hurt more by the other options on the ballot. Colorado, Clinton won by 2.2%. Voters also gave 4.9% to Johnson, 1.2% to Stein, 1% to McMullen, and nearly 1% more to a collective of third-tier candidates. If Johnson was polling more Republicans than Dems in Colorado, he may have given this one to Clinton. Florida, Trump eked out a win by just 1.4% here. Johnson, Stein, Castle, and Rocky De La Fonte of the Reform Party between them collected 3.2%, enough to cover the spread. But how many of those votes would have otherwise gone to Clinton? Stein got only 0.7%. Maine, Clinton won this by 3 percentage points, and Johnson collected 5.1%, so there's a chance he tipped the state to the Democrats, or part of the state anyway. Trump carried Maine's second congressional district, so he is being awarded one of the state's electoral votes. Michigan won this ordinarily blue state, or Trump won this ordinarily blue state by about 0.3%, and Stein got 1.1%. So Democrats who feel all green votes are rightfully theirs are going to be seething at her over this one. Meanwhile, Johnson got 3.6%. Minnesota, Clinton won by 1.4%. McMullen got 1.8%. How many of those voters would have gone for Trump otherwise, and how many would have stayed home beats me. But between that and the other minor candidate results, Johnson got 3.4% and Stein got 1.3%. This looks like a state where the alternatives may have done more to help Clinton than to hurt her. Clinton won by 2.4%. Johnson got 3.3%, and Castle picked up half a point too. New Hampshire, another narrow Clinton win, just a tenth of a percentage point, and another relatively strong showing for Johnson, who collected 4.1%. New Mexico, Clinton won this handily by 8.3%, but Johnson, remember, got 9.3%. Then again, he has a history of picking up Democratic votes in New Mexico. He was reelected easily in his days as governor, despite the predominantly Democratic electorate. And so I'd be hard to make the case that he played spoiler. Pennsylvania, Trump won by about 1.1%. Stein's 0.8% isn't enough to cover that spread. Johnson's 2.4% is, but we don't know whether he was drawing more from Trump or Clinton. And you can read the rest of them at reason.com, but it's really hard to say because, a lot of times when people decide to go third party, it's because they look at the two party system. They're done with it. And then the ones that stay home are just done with the whole electoral system because they went through the third party for years and didn't really get too far. And then when you do, you have someone like Johnson and well. And the problem is, again, it really boils down to one main thing. We have a federal government trying to dictate the lives of people from many cultures and many regions just here in the United States, not to include cultures from other parts of the world that have integrated into our country. And trying to balance these other cultures with Southern cultures. And Southern cultures are different throughout the South. I'm trying to integrate these with Midwestern cultures. And those are different throughout the Midwest. Then you got the West, you got the East Coast, you got North, South. I mean, it becomes one of those things that you can't centralize that type of power. That's why these powers were delegated to the states. Is because the state would be better at being able to look at, how do we conserve our culture that these people have grown up with for generations, and also make it just as welcoming for other cultures. Now, does that always happen? No, but that's where the federal government steps in. When a state abuses the rights of citizens, they step in. But what we see is the federal government overreaching that. They step into the private affairs, the private lives, the private conversations. And that abridges the free speech. That limits creativity. That limits intellectual thought. And if we have a federal government that's willing to do that, then it's going to be up to the communities to say, we will make that better way. We will prove that we don't need federal government. We will take back our local government. And we will put the measures that we need in place to prevent the federal government from abridging the rights of people. Because we literally have had a flip-flop where the federal government tended to step in quite a bit when they were seeing or being, should I say, pressured by society. Society had already usually changed its mind by these points that the federal government would step in. When the majority of society is saying this is unacceptable. But now what we see is the states trying to protect the rights, and we have the federal government saying no, you can't have these rights because it offends someone. These are the same arguments that the whole civil rights movement came out of with state localities, state governments that said, no, this group of people can't have these rights because that would offend these other people. But one common thing that you tend to see with that is that it's the Democrats that make that argument. They were the ones that were making that argument during the civil rights. It was the Republicans that made the counter argument. With Donald Trump, I don't know what's going to happen. All I can do is hope that he becomes at least a tool to get freedom back in the door of our government institutions, to limit the power of those government institutions. And only time will tell. We can't look at the words of the modern day politician. It's been that way for decades now. We have to look at the actions. Okay, I'm going to move on to a clip from AMTV. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I am going to play a pretty decent amount of it. And with this president, now, people know my stance. You know, this is the, time to come together as Americans. Well, I'm one of those people. I'm me. I don't look at myself as American. When I say I'm a libertarian, I'm talking about my ideology, my philosophy. I do not associate with the Libertarian Party or other people that call themselves libertarians. I believe in a libertarian ideology and philosophy that may differ from other libertarians. And I make my views clear, and you can decide who I am based off of, you know, the things that I relay and the person, I am out in public. I tend to let my actions and the fruits of my labor speak for themselves. But it's one of those things too, though. If I believe someone is doing something that is of good character, good moral value, principle, um, I will, you know, call that out just as quick as I'll call out someone that goes against principles and morals. Um, and Trump has come out saying that, he wants to unite America. And I think the only way to unite people is for the federal government to stop interfering. It's almost like, have you ever seen two people that go to fight each other and they get broke up, but they constantly got to be around each other, so that anger is still there and they keep getting broke up. Eventually, you need to allow them to handle it, bring them together to handle it, meaning they have to have the freedom to handle things on their own. This doesn't always come out positive. There's bad people in the world, but government has not stopped bad people. If anything, they have created bad people. It has become the tool of bad people. And what we can hope for is that Trump does not continue that path for America, that he, in whatever way, can limit the government and bring people as communities back together. People used to talk to each other. You used to know your neighbor. We don't have that anymore. We need that back in America. For that, people must rely on the others around them, not someone in Washington, D.C. But here we go with AMTV. And again, we won't play the whole thing, but I'll play quite a bit of it. So here we go.
Hey everybody. I'm Christopher Green. You're watching AMTV, Alternative Media Television Live. Really important day in American history. Just a fantastic victory, unlike anything we have ever seen, ever. This is shocking the world. This is earth-shattering. It feels great. It feels great for something good to happen. I want to thank all of you. We just launched a GoFundMe campaign that have already donated. Please donate if you haven't already. Click the link below. Support us. And thank you very much. God bless all of you. It's an honor to do what we do here. We will be broadcasting the live stream for now here on Facebook, because we've been shut down, if you haven't already heard, by Fox News on YouTube. We can now no longer broadcast our live show on YouTube. Fox News, quite literally, pressed the kill switch on us last night. As I said, and I've emphasized, it's kind of poetic. I'd normally probably be really angry, but I'm actually just so happy that Donald Trump won. We'll see how to fix all these problems, going forward. And it's one of the reasons why you need to support us. Click that link below. Please donate. Help our GoFundMe campaign. Help us put the final nail in the coffin to this mainstream media. I mean, what's so amazing about this, guys, what's so incredible is that the mainstream media was exposed for who they really were by selling bold-faced lies to you in the American public. Oh, Donald Trump can never win. Oh, no, it's an impossibility. Showing the American audience, and those of you tuning in around the world, rigged polls. Oh, Donald Trump's not going to win. It's not going to happen. Just like they said the Brexit wouldn't happen. And what just happened last night is the Brexit on steroids. Chair's a little squeaky, so I'm going to put it out here. Try this guy. This is the Brexit on steroids. I mean, this is earth-shattering, folks. The people have spoken. And what did they say? They said no to globalism, to elitism, to banksterism, to mainstream media-ism, to all these isms, and said yes to America, yes to liberty, yes to freedom, yes to this constitutional republic. And what is so beautiful to see is that America worked last night. And I think there was so much fear among all of us, myself included, you tuning in, that, you know what, it's just so beyond a point of no return. It's so freaking rigged and diseased that there's no hope left. And that's what's so amazing about last night, is that it reinstills faith and hope in a broken system. And I don't just think it was just luck. I really do believe it was an act of God. And what we witnessed last night was grace. And prayers are powerful. And you, the people, are so, so powerful. Let's put the final nail in the coffin of this mainstream media. An important message to Donald Trump today. Now is the time to unite and heal America. There's a lot of people in this country that obviously didn't vote for Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump won by a landslide, and they want us to believe that he didn't have any supporters, even though we knew that he did. For those of you that have attended his rallies as he's traveled across the country with Mike Pence, you've seen stadiums sold out. All these lies pushed by the mainstream media that, he would never be the GOP nominee. Hillary Clinton's going to win by a landslide. I mean, they pushed the most low-life rhetoric that we have ever seen in a presidential campaign, accusing him of baseless untruths and lies, that he's a racist, he's a sexist, he's a xenophobe, he's Hitler. I mean, all these things, and it still didn't work. Because it's gotten to the point in America where the people the sleeping giant has awoken. People get it. They understand that they're being lied to, that they're being controlled. And we as Americans, we just took our country back. And what's so beautiful about this moment is that it happened without a single shot being fired and without a single life being lost. And that's incredible. We have no idea how many millions of people, potentially, lives were saved last night as a result of what just happened. I mean, this could have quite literally prevented a world war. And that is not an exaggeration. That was coming from 4-star generals. That was coming from politicians, people like Jill Stein of the Green Party. That was coming from Vladimir Putin himself. And you know what Mr. Putin did? After the news last night, sent Trump a telegram. And we'll get to the story, mountain of news today, obviously. Now they're ready to work with us, and us with them. And it doesn't mean Donald Trump's not going to be tough. You see, Donald Trump has the best interests of America at heart. Now, something a close confidant pointed out to me today. He said, a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump didn't vote for Donald Trump. They voted against Hillary Clinton. And there's still a genuine level of concern because, let's face facts, America just took a big risk. We elected a maverick, a loose cannon, somebody who has zero political experience. He's laid out a plan, told us what he's going to do, and now he has to live up to those expectations. So there is an unknown factor. And for some Americans, it makes them a little bit nervous. This could be the best thing ever to happen to America in their eyes. It could be the worst thing. Questions that people are asking is, well, what is Donald Trump's agenda? There's the Donald Trump getting elected, what he said he was going to do, and now what I'm hoping is now we get the Donald Trump as president. Now he can put that behind him, put the ugliness of the campaign behind him, put the ugliness of this political rhetoric and discourse behind him, and now become our president. I think he needs to lead by example. I think that he needs to unite this country, bring us together. He needs to reach out to both sides of the aisle, even the haters. And all of us need to lead by example. Show your true colors now, folks, when you're on the streets. When you're with friends and family, and we know the discussions are heated, and there's political banter going back and forth, and there's a lot of emotions involved, and you might get a lot of anger pushed back on you as a result of the Donald Trump victory. My advice, be humbled by what happened last night and let the victory speak for itself. You know, I was an athlete for years. I played water polo. I was also a swimmer, and I always liked swimming because it was an individual sport. If you won the race, you didn't have to say anything. You let your performance speak for itself. Let Donald Trump's performance, let your performance, the people's voice, speak for itself. Now let's work to bring people together. Let's live up to high expectations. Let's be classy. Let's be good people. Let's be humbled by this grace and this incredible victory and this incredible moment in time. Whether or not you realize it or not, this changes everything. And the word that kept sticking out in my mind this morning as I embraced loved ones was, this is a game changer. If you have children, wow. It changes their lives. It changes the lives of future generations. This could be what saved America. And it's an amazing, amazing thing. America worked last night. The checks and balances. And think about this for a moment. Donald Trump won. Republicans kept the House. Republicans kept the Senate. This is incredible. There's finally going to be a check and balance to this radicalization that has become the America that the people just spoke yesterday and said they don't want anymore. They value our liberty. They value their freedom, our Constitution. Not everybody's buying into the PC bullshit. We want a balance. And it's not that everybody isn't welcome, of all races, genders, colors, sexual identities, whoever you are. It's what does make America great. Our diversity. And that's why Donald Trump, and you especially, the people on the ground, because there could be backlash. In fact, I'd even expect it. God forbid there's violence, like we've seen with the Black Lives Matter movements and what George Soros funds through these radical campaigns openly and admittedly, at the same time funding Hillary Clinton. It's going to be much more important how you handle those situations. And I think on a personal level, how you handle your friends and family at this moment. I don't think it's the time or place to go, nah, 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 nah. Like, come on. Don't be children. Let's be adults. Let the victory and performance speak for itself and have peace of mind. And now, Donald Trump moves from Donald Trump trying to get elected to Donald Trump, the leader of this great free nation. And I believe he's going to make this country not just great again, but strong. Whether you love or hate Donald Trump, one thing that's undeniable, he's a winner. He knows how to win. And I think Trump's smart. I actually think Trump's going to bring in incredible people into his cabinet. People like Newt Gingrich, for example, that know the inner workings of Washington, D.C. better than the back of his hand. He's going to have an amazing team of advisors. And I actually think Donald Trump's going to listen to him, to all these people, with all their experience. And what's going to be incredible about it, he's going to execute America like a business, something that we need. Again, love him or hate him, Donald Trump gets things done, just like he did last night. You know, you watch CNN, the Clinton News Network last night, or Fox News, that shut us down, and they're saying things like, nobody could have predicted this. How are the pollsters so wrong? Because they're just eating their words last night. Well, number one, you were lying to us. And then they go on to say something to the effect that the only one that did predict it was Donald Trump himself. It was like watching a funeral procession last night. I mean, I thought Wolfie Blitzer was going to cry on camera. John King. I mean, it was like somber. And I want you to reflect on that for a moment, because I think a lot of Americans are feeling that right now, which is why I'm asking you to be the bigger man or woman tuning in and show them grace through God and good intentions and being humble and being a good person, and let them know that it's okay. And whether you agree to disagree or not, be the better man, be the better woman. And I'm asking all of us, myself included, and Donald Trump specifically, to help heal this country, to bring us together. So let's think about for a moment all the things Donald Trump's going to do. He's going to build a wall. He's going to get Mexico to pay for it. In fact, last night the stock futures dropped precipitously. They were down like 700 points. Things look to be doing okay in the market today. The peso dropped a record 10%. Sheriff Joe Arpaio lost his re-election bid here in Arizona, but now he's probably going to be added to the Trump cabinet in an interesting turn and spin of events. He's building a wall. They're going to stop illegal immigration, stop the bleeding there. Not stop legal immigration. That's great. We want legal immigrants. We want good people here, hard workers, etc. Americans. Going to build that wall. He's going to put a temporary stop to radical jihadi terrorists from entering our country, killing, murdering, maiming, and slaughtering innocents, civilians. Big deal. Saves people's lives. Going to figure things out till we get things under control. Wow, what a great common sense program that is. It's going to give back to the little guy, you and I, the mom and pop family, with what he would say, and I would agree, a huge tax reduction, 35% for the middle class working man. So that can be reinvested into the economy. It can be used to hire more people, to create jobs, to invest in the future. The backbone of America. Where do you think America came from in the first place? Huge. Changes people's lives. He's going to repeal Obamacare. Change people's lives. And I know what you're thinking. We can hear the chants in the back of our ear. Lock her up. Lock her up. Lock her up. There's going to be a time or place for that. It's coming. I spent some time watching Obama's speech, and I thought it was probably the only good thing I've ever seen from the guy, to be honest with you. I thought he did handle it with some pretty good class. Kind of strange to say that. There's been nothing I've seen that guy do over his 2 terms that I've approved of outside of, I think, pretty classy speech, really. Hillary has kind of made her own bed. Whether at this point Trump prosecutes her or not, she is disgraced in this country, and the Clintons have disgraced themselves. It's kind of interesting. I noticed how they were wearing purple. She was wearing purple. It was kind of emblazoned on her pantsuit coat. Bill Clinton, biting his tongue, was wearing purple. Somebody else from her campaign was wearing purple. I think they're like trying to play the woman card there. I've had a few ladies come to me and say, what is sad from a radical left perspective is that, from a woman's perspective and everything women have gone through and the challenge with, it's sad for the 85-year-old woman who, wanted to see that happen in her lifetime. I think that's fair. Wanted to see the first woman, but it's not reason good enough to elect somebody to the highest law of the land into that office. And if Hillary Clinton wasn't diseased, if she hadn't committed crimes, if she hadn't been a part of Benghazi Gate and the lies and the deaths and the creation of ISIS and the destabilization campaigns, places like Libya and what still continues in Syria today, and the email scandal specifically, who knows? Maybe she would have won. But America's had enough. People get it. Even the liberals get it. They know she's dirty. And it's why, honestly, her most severe punishment is the one that she inflicted on herself. It's a self-inflicted punishment. And it's a punishment that the Clintons have inflicted on everybody around them. Huma Abedin, I mean, all these, Chelsea, all the celebrities, the Katy Perrys, Hollywood land that goes out of the way to support her. Lady Gaga wearing a futuristic Nazi outfit. I mean, could you imagine if that happened at a Donald Trump rally, what they would have said? Michael Moore, Mark Cuban, the Silicon Valley Sultans shitting themselves right now as a result of what just happened. The bankster class. And there's going to be pushback. And there's going to be lashing out. I found it incredible. An African-American gentleman who's irrelevant, that's why I don't even know his name, said something about the fact that it was white lash that we experienced last night. I mean, are you kidding me? Donald Trump's classy. Did you watch anything that happened last night? Not perfect. He's a man. I've never said we should put our faith in one man. I don't. I put my faith in a much higher power than that. Donald Trump represents the people. He's a winner. He's a leader, and he's strong. And he's exactly what this country needs. All these people on that bandwagon, Lena Dunham, all these people, bye-bye. Bye-bye. See you later. In fact, we reported on this last night how the Canadian immigration website actually crashed. I think you're going to see, a lot of hate, vitriol coming from the left. I mean, they're going to say horrible things about Donald Trump. I mean, that's why I'm pointing out, let your actions speak for themselves in the coming days. Be an example that you're proud of. If these people want to disgrace themselves and dishonor who they are, if they want to riot in the streets, if they want to say hateful things, maybe even interpersonal relationships, just back off. Let the victory speak for itself. Be the better man or woman. Trump will unite the country. And it's amazing to wake up this morning and see just such an incredible optimism that I didn't see 24 hours ago. A victory. A win. Let's go to the mountain of news. Hillary Clinton, her concession speech, I didn't watch much of it. Just a minute or two. I mean, she couldn't even show her face last night. And then it was strange how John Podesta said something to the effect like, everybody go to sleep because we don't want you to riot. And we'll keep counting the votes. It's not over yet. It was just odd. It was like, but it was already over. I mean, how long did it take the Clinton News Network to admit that Donald Trump had won? I mean, they kept us on the hook there for forever. I mean, again, Wolfie Blitzer and these guys couldn't even believe it. Hillary Clinton says, we owe him an open mind, a chance to lead, although we know she doesn't believe any of this. I mean, she's likened, again, Trump, Putin to Hitler and these kinds of things. I mean, we know where she stands. Let her make her bed. There will be a time and place of which Donald Trump will hire a special prosecutor, and if convicted in a court of law by her peers, like the American people just proved last night with the Donald Trump win, that'll happen. Donald Trump, if you read any of his books, anybody that ever crosses Donald Trump, anybody, all these never Trumpers, I said this before he won last night, have been for, several months now, going on the better part of a year. I mean, he remembers. Be careful to be that never Trumper or the GOP party. People like, Jeb Bush and Mitt Romney and all these people that turn the blind eye. Wow, you might have just ended your career. And Donald Trump has integrity. He's got class, but he remembers. Drain the swamp. We're about to live and see that happen. Reading an article here from the New York Times says, and they had a 95% chance of Donald Trump winning last night for like an hour or so before the Clinton News Network called it. U.S. faces a startling new political reality. Trump works on cabinet and court choices. And again, this has such profound implications for our Supreme Court. Oh my God. This is such a win for the Constitution. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It is such a win. Republicans may control the Congress, the House, and the Senate. And we get a Donald Trump win on top of it. Article here from the Daily Mail says, Trump's joy is Obama's pain. Barack faces destruction of legacy by the Donald presidency, and he does. Because guess who's going to hand off the keys to the White House come January 20th, inauguration? Something I want to bring up. And I didn't want to focus on a lot of like risks or negatives or potential consequential outcomes last night. I mean, I was watching some people, I won't name names today, who are like immediately it's like, well, Donald Trump's going to economic collapse. Armageddon's going to come right after. Can we just have a moment to breathe, for crying out loud? Can we just take a win for the evening before we discuss all the risks and consequences and, yes, the challenges I'm just about to go over with you guys? Donald Trump inherits a lot of problems. This is not going to be easy. It's a great unknown. The economy is in shambles. We will probably be living through another economic collapse in the not too distant future, something I've warned that we all need to prepare for. You know, there's a reason gold was spiking last night. The peso was collapsing. The stock futures were dropping precipitously. Part of me thinks that the bankster class that's been funding Hillary Clinton and her campaign and have been anti-Donald Trump, they're now going to dump those problems on his head and then blame him as a scapegoat. That's a very real possibility. Although I think this is a huge win diplomatically with geopolitical relationships, what's going on in the Middle East right now, most pointedly in Syria, is a good thing. There's still tremendous risk there. And it doesn't mean we're out of the woods necessarily to a world war. There are many things Donald Trump's going to have to address. The rise of the BRICS nations, the move away from the petrodollar, which is backed by the military-industrial complex, blood and war. And we know what American special interests do when any country outside of the U.S. tries to do business outside of the dollar. They go to war, they take leaders out, they kill people. That's what happened to Saddam Hussein. That's what happened to Muammar Gaddafi. That's what they've attempted with Bashar al-Assad in Syria. I don't view Russia as our friends. Let me make that clear. But I think it's a fantastic thing to have diplomacy and to try for that. And I think there's qualities of Putin that make him a very strong leader, and one of the reasons why he is respected around the world. Also, a lot of us got it wrong, including myself. I didn't think Donald Trump would win. I thought it would be a very narrow margin, and I thought Hillary Clinton would eke it out because it was rigged. I talked years ago that I thought Donald Trump would secure the GOP nomination. He'd be used as America's catharsis, and in the last minute, they'd rig it the other way. Didn't happen. A lot of people got it wrong. Julian Assange got it wrong. He said recently in an interview with John Pilger that Trump won't be permitted to win. Now, I actually think there's some psychological warfare involved there, and there might be on my end too. I won't go into too many details, but I always looked at it from the perspective, if you say that Donald Trump is going to automatically win, it makes people complacent. You tell people that it's rigged and that he's going to lose by a gnat's ass, it brings people to the polls, which is what happens. A lot of closet voters there might not tell their friends who they voted for. People ask them. I know people here locally in Arizona, they're like, in different businesses, they'll tell me things like, Christopher, people I'm doing business with ask me about the election, who I'm voting for. I would just say, I learned to get out of politics a long time ago. What do you think? Because a lot of the people I've talked to and learned from in the past, you tell people what you really think, people hold it against you. They stop doing business with you. They persecute you in that way. So I think there was a lot of closet voters that came out to the polls. I also think a lot of people voted for Donald Trump, not necessarily because they voted for Donald Trump, but they voted against Hillary Clinton. And they're probably the ones that are concerned at this point, because what just happened could be the best thing to ever happen in America in their eyes, but in their mind, it could also be potentially the worst thing. They just don't know what they're going to get. And I think that's fair. And we certainly have to hold Donald Trump to the fire. We have to make him accountable to the things that he said and the actions and game plan that he said that he would lay out in his first 100 days. And we have to hold him to that. But I also expect severe curveballs coming. Severe geopolitical turmoil, severe economic turmoil. What really caught me off guard is I thought we would see secession talk and those types of things from the conservative community. And now we're actually getting it from the liberals. Who's the crackpot lunatic now? I mean, it's kind of quite interesting how it just, everything flipped over. Everything changed last night. I mean, you're seeing it right now. I mean, the vitriol, the backlash, social media is exploding right now. I mean, I think Hannity did a piece of like all the celebrities, someone was telling me this AM, of the people that threatened to leave the country. I mean, there's going to be major backlash in Hollywood, major anti-Trump campaigns. He's Hitler, he's the devil, he's Satan, and it's only showing these people for who they really are. Let them show that. You show class. Donald Trump destroys Barack Obama's legacy. He put an end to it. 2 terms of destruction of a Manchurian candidacy in this country. America first. America first. Get people back to work. Rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. Rebuild that confidence in America. That idea that has always made America great. I mentioned to you that Canada's immigration site crashed last night as the liberals panic. California wants to leave the U.S. after Donald Trump's election win. Says that massive blue block on the left, encompassing California, Oregon, Nevada, and Washington state, stands out quite a bit against all of the red. So it may not be a huge surprise that people living in that Democratic voting bloc are now looking at other options, specifically secession. Since Donald Trump's electoral victory was first announced, Calexit hashtag has been trending on Twitter with distraught Californians looking to form their own state. This is playing out to what I thought we would see, but in reverse. That's what's so crazy about this. Even in the social media feeds, and again, I'm kind of in my bubble of libertarianism, freedom, liberty, and conservatism, so I don't get it in my personal feed, but my friends are telling me and family that not only are their social media accounts blowing up anti-Donald Trump rhetoric right now, but there's like even people starting support groups. Like these liberals are traumatized that the sleeping giant that makes up old traditional American principled values in the constitutional republic rose up last night and took the country back. Quite literally, last night. Collects it. You're going to see a lot of hateful things said in the next few days, in the next few hours. Hollywood's freaking out, about to throw up, according to some. People taking Xanax, losing their minds. Anxiety, despair, lack of hope. You guys will be fine. Just go attend one of those spirit cooking classes or whatever you guys do. You'll be fine. You'll forget about it. Lady Gaga will still be performing in, Hitler uniforms and Nazi uniforms. You guys will get over it. Lena Dunham, you'll get over it. Well, you'll be outside of the country, though, so bye-bye. Bye-bye. Silicon Valley is freaking out right now. There's one article here that didn't pull up. I'd like to grab for you guys. There it is. This was from The Hill, I believe. I wanted to pull all the celebrities who said that they would leave the country. Computer's moving a little slow here, guys, for me, at least on my end.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. AMTV. Go check them out on YouTube. Subscribe. And let me go ahead and pull this up here. Okay, I'm going to read this from The Hill. Celebs who said they'd leave the country if Trump won. It says here, once it stops the loading, jumping all over the place with their ads. Dozens of celebrities vowed to leave the country if Trump, come on, if Donald Trump won the White House, saying they'd flee to everywhere from Canada to Jupiter, of course, being smart Alex. The threat is a common one that after any election outcome. Canada's immigration website crashed from heavy traffic as it looked increasingly likely that Trump would win. But after the real estate mogul clinched the presidency in a stunning victory early Wednesday morning, some of those stars will face questions about making good on their promise. Here's a list of some of the celebs who claim they would move out of the U.S. under a Trump administration. Actors. Ben Cranston said he hopes he doesn't have to pack his bags, but would definitely move if Trump won. Absolutely, I would definitely move, the Breaking Bad star said on the Best Seller Experiment podcast. It's not real to me that that would happen. I hope to God it won't. Well, liked your acting, but farewell. Um, I don't plan on abandoning my country or my home unless it actually came down to having to do that just over an election. But Samuel L. Jackson slammed Trump for running a hate-filled campaign and said he would move to South Africa if he wins. If that mother effer becomes president, I'm moving my black butt to South Africa, the movie star um, quipped with Jimmy Kimmel. Um, Lena Dunham told Andy Cohen at the Matrix Award that um, I know a lot of people who have been threatening to do this, but I really will. I know a lovely place in Vancouver, the star and creator of HBO's Girls has been a vocal advocate for Hillary Clinton, the Democratic nominee. Neve Campbell, an actress on the political drama House of Cards, vowed to move back home to Canada, while Orange is the new black actress Natasha Lyonne said she would hightail it to a mental hospital. Nurse Smart Alec remarked. Um, Singer Cher tweeted this summer that if Trump gets elected, I'm moving to Jupiter. Again, Smart Alec one. Miley Cyrus wrote in an emotional Instagram post in March that tears were running down her cheek and she was unbelievably scared and sad. I am moving if he is president, the young pop star said. I don't say things I don't mean. Well, I got a small clip to play from her here in a minute. Barbara Streisand, a vocal Clinton supporter, told 60 Minutes that I'm either coming to your country if you let me in or Canada. Neo told TMZ last month that he'd move to Canada and be neighbors with fellow R&B singer Drake if the country elected Trump. Comedian Amy Schumer said in September that Spain would be her destination of choice. My act will change because I will need to learn to speak Spanish, Schumer said in an appearance on BBC's Newsnight, because I will move to Spain or somewhere. It's beyond my comprehension if Trump won. It's just too crazy. Chelsea Handler said she already made contingency plans months ago. I did buy a house in another country just in case, the comedian and talk show host said during an appearance on Live with Kelly and Michael in May. So all these people that threaten to leave the country and then don't, I actually will leave that country. Former Daily Show host Jon Stewart said he would consider getting a rocket and going to another planet because clearly this planet's gone bonkers if the real estate mogul wins. Whoopi Goldberg, co-host of The View, said on an episode of the talk show earlier this year that if the country elects Trump, maybe it's time for me to move. I can afford to go. Keegan Michael Kay said he would flee north to Canada. It's like 10 minutes from Detroit. The comedian told TMZ in January, "That's where I'm from. My mom lives there. I'd make her happy too." Hispanic comedian George Lopez said Trump won't have to worry about immigration if he takes the White House because we'll all go back. Political figures. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg joked in an interview with the New York Times in July that it'd be time to move to New Zealand if Trump were to win. Now it's time for us to move to New Zealand, she said, quoting her husband who died in 2010. I can't imagine what the country would be with Donald Trump as our president. For the country, it could be 4 years. For the court, it could be, I don't even want to contemplate that. Ginsburg later apologized for her comments, calling them ill-advised. Civil rights activist Al Sharpton told a reporter earlier this year that he's reserving my ticket out of here if Trump wins. And that was out of the Hill. And of course, these people are not going to leave. And I'm sure there's probably actually a lot of people out there that wouldn't mind. And talking about Miley Cyrus, I do have a clip here. If I can get back to it. And I think I have it up here now. Of her tearful video after Trump won. Let's see if that's going to play here. Here it is.
Okay. So probably like most people that are going to see, well, maybe not, because given the result, maybe I really am different, and maybe a lot of people that I'm surrounded by think with open minds and open hearts like I do. And I do want to say that I've been very vocal for my support for everyone besides Donald Trump. Heavily supported Bernie, heavily supported Hillary. And I still think that in her lifetime she deserves to be the first female president. And that's what makes me so sad. Is that I just wish that she had that opportunity because she's fought for so long. And because I believe her when she says that she loves this country. This is all she's ever done. She's given her life to make it better. But like Donald Trump so ironically played after his speech, it said you can't always get what you want. And happy hippies, we adjust and we accept everyone who they are. And so, Donald Trump, I accept you. And this hurts to say, but I even accept you as the president of the United States, and that's fine. That's fine, because I think now I want to be a hopeful hippie, and I want to be hopeful that you will step into, and President Obama, Mr. Obama, I want to say thank you for everything you've done in these past years. But please just treat people with love and treat people with compassion and treat people with respect. And I will do the same for you. And anyway, anything you ever want to talk about or understand, maybe people that don't think the same way that you and some of the people that support you do, please, if you want to open your mind and you want to open your heart, I would love to give you a key. Thank you so much. Thank you, Hillary, for inspiring all of us.
So that was Miley Cyrus not leaving the country, accepting Donald Trump as her president. So sorry, guys, she'll be staying. For those that wanted her to leave. Now I'm not hating on anyone really, because in the end of the day, that we have to take control of our lives. We have to take control of our communities, and even when we don't like how someone lives their life, that's their right. Just as the way you want to live your life is your right. And when we focus on that, it makes it even harder for government to intervene, because the government can brainwash and intervene in those ways. But when society has woken up, when society goes, shut up and get out of the way, government loses its power. And people are like, no, government's too big, it's too powerful. Again, you have to look at, what government really is, the size of government compared to the population. It's up to the society to take control of their lives. And as long as they keep running to government to take care of them, government will definitely take care of you, just like it takes care of prisoners. They will give you a place to sleep, they will feed you, but the conditions are not going to be what you expected. And I believe that's why we are where we are, because society has not woken up enough. And when you look at where Hillary won, it's where a lot of these people are, like, Whoopi and Miley, that are truly out of touch because they are so involved in the media. A lot of people go, oh, yeah, they're Illuminati. A lot of these people are so entrenched in that whole media, and they are surrounded by all these people. They are truly brainwashed, because if you look at media, these people truly believe this, but they're usually talking about issues that actually affect a very, very, very small portion of society. When it comes to guns, comes to, the gay and transgender rights, all that, a lot of these are very small issues. And the problem comes because they try to force them. You get the counter. Again, a left foot and a right foot on the same body. It's government. And each kick gets a little bit harder from each side. And, the bathroom laws here in Indiana, where you have the right to religion that they pass. Well, why did they pass this? Because they were feeling threatened by the other side, that the other side was going to force them into something. So they have to counter and say, no, we're gonna basically counter that with something that really seems like it's targeting. But see, in Indiana, there was already a right to deny service, a right to hire, a right to fire. Indiana has been that type of a state where you can kick someone out of your business. You have a right to deny that service to a person that you believe is acting a certain way or, um, disregarding your business or, harming your business. You had that right. But again, you see how each side plays into the other side where it starts growing government. Allowing government to pass things they don't really have the authority or right to pass. That's why we are where we are. Because we have to wake up and you go, no, you know what? You don't need a law that says a person that owns property in a business has the right to deny a service. That's their business. Um, that doesn't mean that we like those people. We can not go to those people. It's a problem with people wanting to force others to go along with their agenda or their philosophy. And that's not right. And the funny thing is there's a lot of people on both sides. Like let's take the gay community. There's a lot of gay people who are like, I don't need a whole bunch of laws protecting me. I just need people to leave me alone, let me live my life as I choose. They're not wanting government intervention. They're just saying that government has interfered. And same with, gun laws. There's good people on the side of gun laws and there's bad people. And the good people are saying, I don't want to force you to fire a firearm or own a firearm. I just want my right respected to own a firearm. If I'm not harming anybody, it doesn't matter if it's a firearm, a pitchfork, or a kitchen knife. If I'm not harming someone, then this is not a threat to you. This is for my protection or my lifestyle if I hunt or just I like to shoot. We've lost that in our ideology and philosophy. Now I want to cover something real quick. This is from bearingarms.com. Gun Owners of America on Facebook shared it. Bypass gun reform, President Trump will sign into law. And it says here, President-elect Donald Trump stunned the world last night with a commanding upset victory over the heavy favorite Democrat Hillary Clinton. In addition to Trump's victory in the contest to be the 45th president of the United States, the National Rifle Association's 5 million members helped retain control of the Senate by backing victorious GOP contenders in Florida, Missouri, Indiana, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. At the time, New Hampshire Senate contest between Kelly Ayotte and Maggie Hassan, Democrat, remains too close to call. The House also remains comfortably under the control of the GOP. The NRA pumped more money into Trump's election than any super PAC, and Trump has a reputation for standing by his allies. Here are 5 past gun law reforms President Trump will and his Republican House and Senate can make. Ending gun-free zones on military bases. They have a description there on that. A national concealed carry reciprocity. Legalizing silencers and background check reform where they don't want to It says here, gun control supporters want a universal background checks on all gun purchases in order to create a de facto gun registry, and that's just not going to happen. What is going to happen is that President Trump, the House, and Senate are going to work on legislation to close the gaping holes in the existing background check system so that it is more effective, ensuring better and more accurate updating of prohibited persons. This will likely run in conjunction with mental health reform to both help people in crisis obtain the help they need and ensure that fears of losing their Second Amendment rights won't keep people from seeking help for a temporary but important mental health crisis, and allow importation of collectible historic firearms that Obama um, had passed. What was it? Collectible Firearms Protection Act is what they're going to pass, but he's timed the importation of historical significant firearms provided to allies after the Second World War and Korean War through executive orders. So hopefully he does all these things. I don't know. Only time will tell. One thing I did want to touch on, I really don't believe that Hillary is going to be prosecuted. I could be wrong. I don't think he'll follow through on that. And I think that will show that even though people elected him thinking he's so different, he might still have something that aligns with the ruling class. And I think that would be your telltale sign right there if nothing comes of it. And if we see that, things like the background check reform could actually hurt you. If he doesn't go back on Obamacare, if the Republicans don't go back on Obamacare, there's things in Obamacare along with the background check reform could put a lot of people's rights in jeopardy. And if you look at a lot of scientific, so-called scientific articles and journals, they're called a lot of things mental disabilities now. A lot of normal human behaviors become disabilities, mental disabilities. That's the one reform I would really keep my eye on. But we are coming up to the end of the broadcast. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Stay tuned here on UCY.TV. This is a great broadcasting network bringing you many, many different opinions and views, and also bringing you the facts that mainstream media won't talk about. Don't forget to support UCY. If you go to UCY.TV, there's a support tab at the top. You click that, you can donate to help cover operating costs on the networks. And you can also scroll down to the bottom. There's an Amazon button. Shop Amazon through UCY.TV, and UCY gets a little kickback to help cover operating costs. And UCY is thankful for all the support that we get from our listeners. And also, when you're prepping, don't forget metals are a good trading, definitely silver. Go to Amagi Metals. If you go to antityrannynews.com/metal, that'll take you to Amagi Metals. Same great deal, same great shipping rate, and we get a little kickback to help cover our operating costs on this end. And you know what? It's getting a lot more saturated out there, but in that we've also have been able to shed off a lot of the people that have not been sincere, have not, stuck to their word. And UCY has been one of those networks where the hosts we have here have been great and really on point about many of the issues. And it's one of those things you have to support alternative media when mainstream media won't cover the true facts, the true topics of the day. And you can't find many networks like UCY. Stay tuned again here on UCY. Great broadcast coming up after this. Thank you all.
JJ from Against the Wall, and you're